Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 34 of the Daily List Report. I'm Randy Shiozaki, one of the founders of ListReports, and we've got a really exciting show today. So you're going to want to stay tuned for the entire thing. Today, I've got Wessal Khader, who's our Chief Operating Officer. She's going to join me today, and we are going to introduce this idea of extreme ownership, and we're going to talk about next week. So as I've been talking about every day, and I'm sure you've been watching, is that next week we are going to have a full lineup of incredible military leaders leading up to Memorial Day who are going to come on, and they're going to talk about this idea of extreme ownership, and every one of them has an incredible background. Many of them have backgrounds in real estate, and so this is going to be an exciting week. We're going to talk a lot more about that in just a moment. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got my good friend Keizo Shimamoto coming on. He is a world famous ramen chef, the inventor of the ramen burger, appeared on Conan O'Brien, amazing tasty videos, and he embodies focus and discipline better than anyone that I know. And so he's going to come on tomorrow and he's going to share some of what he's learned throughout his career. With that, and I always start it like this, but it's true, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Wessal Khader and bringing her onto the screen. So Wessal is our Chief Operating Officer, and she has a huge heart for the military. She is also going to be my co-host next week. So the first time doing a co-host, so I get to share the stage with you, Wessal. Wessal, you are on air now. Say hello to our agentpreneurs.
Hello again, everyone. I'm so happy to be back speaking with you because we have so many exciting things to talk about today.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait for the end of this show. So you have to stay to the end because we've got a really cool reveal at the end of this show. Yes. Very exciting. So Wessal, we are teeing up next week something that we're calling Stand and Salute. And we borrowed that name, and we're going to get into where we borrowed it from and sort of what the meaning is. But the theme of next week is really going to be this idea of extreme ownership. So we're dedicating all of next week's shows, Monday through Friday, to bring on incredible military leaders. And as we always do on this show, and I'm going to have Wessal take over here for a second, is why are we doing this? Wessal, why did we decide to do this? Why should everybody tune in? Why should they share this with all of their friends? Why is next week going to be so incredible?
Well, this is sort of a natural just thing that happened after we came on, what was it, about 2 weeks ago, Randy? And we talked about this book that I'm obsessed with, the Extreme Ownership book by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And we had a really great response to that show. And a lot of people reach out and say, I love that book. I really like the principles in there. And we had some really positive feedback from it. I was thinking, we have so much access to some of the most brilliant military leadership as a result of our friends and our network. And I was like, what if we could bring in some of those amazing people to share with the rest of our user base and all of the audience, with all of you agentpreneurs, some of the things that inspire us every day as leaders, right? And these people that we're going to be bringing onto the show are influential on me personally, and have made a massive impact on America. And I cannot wait to bring them on the show with you. However, we were thinking about it, and it turns out that Memorial Day happens to be a week from Monday. And so, you know what? There's this whole daily show that this guy named Randy Shiozaki runs. We thought we could just take over all 5 episodes next week and make this an amazing series of really tremendous content for both all of you who are listening and for you as real estate agents, loan officers out there, to repurpose for all of your spheres of influence and contacts who could also use an amazing amount of inspiration, of lessons, of learnings from some of the brightest minds in America that lead our military or have served at one point or another.
And it just so happens, a really good point, Wessal, just to interject, right, is that the content for next week in particular is applicable to anybody, right? I've actually shared several of these episodes with my kids, right? But next week in particular is broadly applicable to a very wide audience. Oh, we lost Wessal. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, Wassal's going to try to jump back on. That means I get to carry the rest of the show if I can't get her back on. For those listening at the office, please ping her and try to get her back on. Otherwise, I will introduce the rest of this. So where we were going with this is a few things, right? So we always talk about on this show the why. What is our why? And for this show, for this next week, there's a few things on our minds. First and foremost is to honor the service and sacrifice that our military has made, right? So we want to honor those who are actively serving right now, those who have served, and we want to remember and honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And so next week, and we'll talk about Wednesday's show in just a moment, but next week we're actually going to be able to bring on one of our partners. Oh, actually, Wessal is back. Wessal, hang on 1 second. Let me see. 1 second, Wessal. We're trying to pull this off here. Let me bring her back. Wessal, I got you.
Yes.
Are you back?
I'm back.
Oh man, I was gonna have to carry this show myself. So I was just talking about Wessal. Maybe you can pick it up from here. Our first why, right? Which is to honor the service and sacrifice. So I talked about that, and that's a really important part of this. And we're gonna have a fundraiser that's tied to this. We've got a partner who's gonna do matching funds. We'll give more information on that in a moment. But giving back is a really key part of this. But the second why that we have here is about learning. So, Wessal, why don't you jump in here and talk a little bit about the opportunity that we all have to learn from these amazing leaders?
Well, I touched on this on our show a couple of weeks ago, Randy, when I was referencing some of the points in the Extreme Ownership book. It's this idea that a lot of the people I've been speaking with in the military just seem to be far better prepared to go through all the trials and tribulations we've been going through together through the COVID-19 crisis. And so I wanted to bring to light why I believe that is. And we did some of that on that first show. But I think that our viewer base wanted to know more. And so we thought, why don't we just bring these people in directly to just hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will, as to why these leaders are so prepared. How did they learn that? What is their mental model for making decisions? How do they stay so resilient and inspirational to those around them, despite how difficult some of the things that we've had to do and pivots we've had to make in our businesses are, right? And so we wanted to bring it to you live and have them share with you some tips and tricks and the way that they actually think. This is the type of sharing we love to leverage this show for, Randy. As you know, people love your news updates and headlines. They learn a lot. They repurpose it with their user base too. And what better learning to share, especially leading up to Memorial Day, in order to really honor the people who've served and who've lost their lives in this country for our armed forces. We thought, let's bring some people in who are still actively serving in their own unique ways and share with everyone else maybe some tips and tricks about how they can do the same thing.
That's right. That's exactly right, Wessal, and that's great. And then our third why here is really about selflessness, right? It's really about this idea of giving back. And we're all dealing with a myriad of issues and challenges, some of us more obviously than others. But this idea of that there's something that's bigger than each one of us, right? This idea of giving back. Wessal, why don't you touch on sort of our third why for next week?
Yeah, this is really important to me personally, right? I have this theory that in the most difficult of times, the hardest of times, the biggest challenges that you'll face in your life, that the only thing in that moment that has ever made me feel better is serving others. In the worst of situations, right? Like if I'm losing everything and something's breaking and everything's on fire, the only thing I've ever been able to go to, that makes me feel whole is serving another person. And you know what? I think service can be very selfish, and I'm happy to be around a bunch of very selfish people at ListReports who love serving others in times that are most difficult. So for us, it's a natural behavior, I think, as an organization when we are in a tough spot and our customers are in a tough spot to just dig in and take extreme ownership and go to what we know, which is helping other people. That makes all of us feel great. And so we have a lot of other people who do the same thing. Where did we learn this? We've learned this from these inspirational leaders. I personally learned how to be of service, even in the most difficult of times, from the most tremendous nonprofit leaders and other organizations, many of whom serve the military. And I want to share that learning with you as well. And so we are going to be bringing up, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more, some nonprofit endeavors that we support this week and the leaders of those nonprofit organizations. Beyond
Absolutely.
that, beyond them sharing how they are of service right now and who they're serving, they also have really resilient stories about how they've had to shift their strategy during this COVID-19 crisis to get fundraising during a time where they can't make any kind of connection with their network except for online. And so they've had to pivot their models quite a bit too, and we have some interesting stories to share about that.
That's perfect. So Wessal, what I pulled up on screen right now is just our first slide, right? And what I want you to do is I want you to spend just maybe 2 minutes introducing or reintroducing actually to our audience this idea of extreme ownership, right? So we're theming next week, Stand and Salute. And that's the title of next week. And the theme of next week is around Jocko Willink's book. So Jocko is a Navy SEAL officer, a New York Times best-selling author of this book called Extreme Ownership. He's an amazing, inspirational leader and speaker. In fact, AJ Shaw, my partner and CEO, went to one of his events, and it really changed him in some profound ways. And so we're theming this week around this idea of extreme ownership as popularized by Jocko. So Wessal, if you don't mind, just spend maybe 2 minutes and reintroduce the notion of the idea of what extreme ownership is.
I think it's this notion that is very personal to everyone who reads the book. And I know, Randy, you've read it recently again, and kind of it resonated with you differently than it does with me, right?
Yes.
For me, the entire book is inspirational because it's a perspective, a lot of stories about actual situations that Jocko Willink had to deal with whenever they were fighting in the Battle of Ramadi, which is a really intense situation to both reflect on and learn from. And so I'm so grateful that they wrote this book because it has impacted millions of Americans. This is a #1 New York Times bestseller, and it is very worth the read. So I encourage everybody, first of all, on this call to read this book, and it's really important that you do in advance of next week, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this book generally describes how to think about the situation, take active leadership in any crisis, and come out on top and influence and affect and lead those around you because of your behavior. And a lot of that starts with your own mental fortitude and your attitude from the time you wake up in the morning and put your feet down on the ground to the way that you take action throughout your day, taking extreme ownership and not placing blame on anyone else or any unknown circumstances is mainly the theme of the book. It is about you and what you can control, and taking massive action in an area that serves you right then is very influential. It's very inspirational to those around you, and it can mean great things to an organization if you lead one, or a team if you're leading one, or even in your own family. So the principles that are shared in this book are really serving the human being, but from a pretty direct voice, which I really like. I like tough love voice, especially in real estate and mortgage lending. My background, we like to just be direct, right? Like we're very direct people. We like to say what we think. We like our opinions to be shared, and we love to share those with our customers too, because the reason people work with real estate agents is that they identify with them on a social level. They trust them. They built a relationship with that particular influencer. And a lot of those things happen because of the personality that's emanating from that real estate agent or that loan officer. And we like the idea of you taking that special thing inside of you, making it really strong, and elevating it, right? And then putting it all out on social media like we're helping you do at ListReports to bring more people to you, right? That attraction of people that are like-minded to one another is positivity, and it comes from people just taking over their own superpower and leveraging it for good. And extreme ownership really, really hits on all those principles. Really big fan of the book. So are millions of Americans. I'm sure a lot of you've already read it, but these people that we're bringing on the show next week, Randy, exude extreme ownership in every aspect of their businesses, their nonprofit organizations, and in their lives. And so we felt like the lineup next week was really, really wonderful for our viewers to actually hear, because they all somehow adhere to the principles that Jocko speaks about in the book.
Absolutely. So Wessal, that's a really great segue. So what we're going to do now is, without further ado, we actually are going to introduce our lineup for next week. So we're going to start with Monday. So Monday is going to be a really cool day. On Monday, we are going to open with my brother-in-law, actually, Lieutenant Colonel John Boyer. He's currently deployed in South Carolina. This position was previously forward deployed in Qatar. And he's actually going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. He's going to give some inspirational words. He's got a tremendous background and a huge, huge heart. And he's my brother-in-law. So he's going to open up. And after that, we're actually going to bring on David Deary. And so, Wessal, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction on David for our audience?
I can't say enough about this guy. You guys are about to meet some of the most amazing people in America and in my life personally next week. I don't know if I can only spend 2 minutes on each of these people, Randy. You have to cut me off.
I will.
David Deary is one of those people that completely changed my life, actually. He is the former Region Command Master Chief for all of San Diego's Navy, right, and America's Navy, located in San Diego when I met him. He's retired now, and I met him when he was still active duty, in charge of thousands and thousands of our enlisted leaders in the Navy. Massive numbers of people that serve our country were led by David Deary, and he's an enlisted leader, very different than some of the other officer leaders that we're going to meet with this week as well. The enlisted leadership are frontline getting it done, the people who move the needle, and he led them. And I have been so inspired by his leadership over the years. We became friends through some of our nonprofit endeavors, because David has a couple of different nonprofit initiatives that are very widely known in Southern California. One of which is this amazing thing called Chief Petty Officer Pride Day, where you literally can take a look at downtown San Diego one day in the year and see thousands of active duty sailors in uniform marching down the streets of San Diego, boarding the USS Midway in this most amazing spectacle, because they're all celebrating about to make rank, or they've just become chiefs in the Navy, and they have this amazing Pride Day that he leads. And I got to be involved with that a long time ago, and since then got involved with a few of his other foundation efforts, one of which is the Enlisted Leadership Foundation. David has made his career by being an amazing leader and decided to serve beyond his time in the military and created a foundation. And his is about leadership. He teaches the military different leadership tactics, strategies, and mental models, bringing in civilian leaders to share with the military how they can learn from each other. So he's one of those connectors, and one of those people who is completely of service to others before self. And he's a tremendous person that we want to hear some tips and tricks from. He also did some really amazing things by turning all of those in-person events that can no longer happen due to COVID-19 to really successful virtual events, which I thought was very much in line with all the things we're doing with our agents, with our virtual open houses.
That's fantastic, Wessal. So Monday is going to be a great start to the week. So many lessons to learn there. Let's talk about Tuesday. So Tuesday, we've got Mary Maloney coming on. Wessal, why don't you talk a little bit about Mary? This is going to be tremendous, and she's obviously a top real estate agent herself.
Heck yeah, this is a badass female leader, right? We love these, obviously. I'm just totally about this world. And as many of you, thousands of you out there watching us are badass female leaders in real estate, this is one of them. And she happens to be a mom, a wife, and a Navy veteran. Mary Maloney is a tremendous leader in the industry. I've known her for years. She's got a name for herself in the most expensive part of the nation. And she happens to lead the #1 team up in North County, San Diego. She is a tremendous agent, and she's very creative. And I'm excited to have her come share with all of our real estate agents some of the things that she's been doing during this time for business. And so there's some really actionable tips and tricks for our real estate agents to learn from Mary. But then also we want to know how her mind works. What has she learned from her time in service that has made her so prepared for what's happening right now that she can share with all of you? She's also just super cool. I mean, this lady, I learned about her because she had this reputation down in San Diego where she'd drive a Windstream bus. Is it Airstream? Is that what those buses are called? Those cool silver, those old Airstream buses. She'll drive one up to an open house and serve lemonade to the community and bring in these hordes of customers to these open houses. And she's just a tremendous person. I can't wait for her to share some tips with our audience.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Wessal, let's talk about Wednesday now, right? So Wednesday, the title of next week is Stand and Salute. We've borrowed that because there's an amazing fundraiser with matching funds, by the way, that's going on, and we're going to have some of the leaders of that program on Wednesday. So Wessal, why don't you talk a little bit about our guests on Wednesday, Tony and Laura specifically?
I will. This one is very close to the chest here. So the organization leading the Stand and Salute 24-hour virtual fundraising campaign that we are going to be sharing with all of you in hopes that you can help support is the CEO of an organization called Support the Enlisted Project, which is a Southern California organization, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps the junior enlisted military, who are those who simply cannot afford to pay their bills at certain times, with financial relief and sustained education that makes sure that they don't get back into the same financial hardship that they do. And a lot of the funding that goes to that organization goes to preventing homelessness and foreclosure and other housing related items. So I've been very interested in this organization for years, and I currently sit on the board of directors for this organization and support them nationally. Tony Teravainen is a Navy veteran himself, former executive, many large companies, and he's an incredible, inspirational leader. He's going to be coming to talk to us about service. What does that mean? What does actually the essence of service mean to him? He's a super cool guy. He's got this like ranch with all these different animals and llamas and avocado trees up in northern San Diego County too. Just an interesting human being. Also with him is going to be our director of development, Laura White, who's going to be talking about the Stand and Salute fundraising opportunity, because because it's not just STEP, Support the Enlisted Project, that is going to be benefiting from this 24-hour campaign. It's a group of 7 different nonprofit organizations, including local USO, the Goodwill, Working Wardrobes, and quite a few other organizations that we are very proud of. Many of you have heard of nationally, that are looking for your support during times like these, because need was always there, and it's certainly heightened during COVID-19. So they're going to talk to you about that while also sharing their perspective on service and how you too can be of service. And this day, guys, is really, really influential for your customer bases, right? Being of service and supporting nonprofits during this time is great. And no organizations better to support leading up to Memorial Day than those who support our active duty and veteran militaries, right? So your customer bases, when you're remarketing a lot of this content we're creating for you, will really benefit from seeing these organizations and getting some highlighted information from them. So we really hope you share this broadly with your customer bases.
Absolutely. So that's great. What a great way to sort of have the middle of the week. We're all going to give back and we're going to learn some great lessons. And in fact, Wessal, Tony was a nuclear engineer. Is that his background in the military?
Oh my gosh, he's got so many roles and so many jobs over his career. I mean, I can't wait to let him share all of that detail with them himself. He's got some very interesting, fun stories too. We'll let him share with everyone.
Perfect. That sounds good. Awesome. Okay, so that's Wednesday. Thursday, we've got a new friend, Ken Robbins. Ken is tremendous. He's had a 20-year career as an Army officer. He did his undergrad at West Point. He has a graduate degree from Harvard. He was actually appointed in 2009 by President Obama as one of 15 White House fellows, and he has served in the Office of Personnel Management. And he's just got an amazing story. His wife is a top real estate agent. Wessal, why don't you introduce Ken a little bit for the audience?
I'm so happy to have finally met Ken recently when we were prepping for all of this, because I've heard of his organization in that they are solving a major problem that actually every real estate agent has probably faced with their clients at one point or another, which is the military permanent change of station process. When you have a customer who is in active duty military and gets orders to relocate, it's a big fun moment for a real estate agent because they get to help that person relocate and or find a new home in a new market. But for the active duty member, it's incredibly challenging to, within 6 months, have to uproot your entire life and replace yourself in a new location you've never been to. And so Ken and Millie have built a really incredible structure that allows for support on the ground in the new location that a military member is about to PCS to. And all of the services and just outreach and help that you need with someone on the ground to support you through that process, including real estate agents who are in their network that they call agent heroes. And I hope everyone here is clicking on the links that we're going to give you so you can check out this organization and potentially get signed up to be an agent hero with Millie. They have people there to support the active duty members who are PCSing. And the interesting part of their business model is most of the people that are employed by Millie are military spouses who are also really lost in transition during a lot of that PCSing, where their jobs, the spouse's jobs, gets uprooted every single time they relocate. And a lot of organizations don't have the clout to support them. So his business model is tremendous, very relevant to our agent base. And we found out when we were talking to him, Jennifer and I, prepping for the show, Randy, that his inspiration for even starting the whole organization is his real estate agent, top producer wife. Okay, so we were like, oh God, I love this story so much.
Perfect.
I can't wait for him to come share this. So he's going to tell us some stories about his wife, Heidi Robbins, who is a top performing agent in Northern Virginia. And it's just very relevant content for our agent user base to hear from. And of course, his time in service is tremendous, and he has a lot to share in the form of leadership and how he's dealing with his business right now.
Absolutely. So Wessal, we've got this amazing lineup Monday through Thursday. The theme here is extreme ownership based on Jocko Willink's book, and you introduced a lot of those topics, and each of these individuals embodies those principles in, I think, some really amazing ways. So what are we going to do for Friday, Wessal? Like, I don't know, how do we end an amazing week like this? What do you think?
I don't really know, Randy. I mean, we were talking about extreme ownership. People were like, oh, I love that Jocko Willink guy. I love that book. And you know, I do. I'm just obsessed with this particular leader and all of his content. And so, you know what? We decided to take extreme ownership and just say, I wonder if we can get Jocko on the show. So
That's
did.
impossible,
and
Wessal.
he will
Come
be
on.
coming.
There's no way. This
we
guy's
did.
got
We got
1.3 million followers.
He's coming.
No, he's not. We can't do that.
Yep. He's actually famous. Unlike us, Randy. He's a real, legit, famous dude.
So
Jocko
check this
Willink
out, everybody. I got the slide up on the screen right now. We've got Jocko Willink himself in person with his chief of staff, Andrew Paul, who's a good friend of Wassal's, who is coming on the show on Friday. Come on, can we give it up for this a little bit? We've actually got the author of the book coming on.
This is so exciting, okay? This guy is so influential, and we're going to have him live, and we're going to bring him here just so he can share with our agentpreneurs and all of their customers his direct perspective, both on that book in these times, which is incredibly interesting for all of us, right? We have a lot to learn during that segment, but the other interesting thing here is Andrew Paul, who is joining Jocko and going to be a co-host on the show with us on that day, is another person we can all learn a tremendous amount from. Andrew Paul is a top producing loan originator for years in the industry. He's this guy that I've tried to recruit literally for the last 10 years to work with me. I never could get this guy, but we've been friends the entire time, okay? He's also a Navy SEAL who served with Jocko. And so he's been one of the most inspirational people I've ever known in the lending industry because he serves veterans very ethically. And he's built his business on that service and has a lot to share on that content as well. He's also just a really highly ethical person, a really great Christian man who lives by some really wonderful principles and has built his sphere of influence around those notions. And of course, that's why he hangs out with the likes of Jocko Willink, right? We've got good friends and in great places that we want to bring over to you to share whatever it is that you can grapple onto that will help you get through these times and leverage this for opportunity for success, right? We talked about that early on, Randy.
That's right.
When you embrace extreme ownership, you don't just survive something, right? You can actually leverage that opportunity to thrive beyond your wildest imagination. That's what Jocko believes. That's what Andrew believes. That's what every one of our guests lineup next week believes and executes on in action. So we hope that everyone can really take that and really gain actionable, detailed ways that they can change their lives and their business, starting with their mentality from all these amazing people who are very excited to come speak to all of you because they too are thinking, as anyone is, about Memorial Day and how they can spend their time serving others in honor of everyone else who's served and passed away, you know, taking care of us in America.
That's right.
It's a really emotional week for me. I'm extremely excited about it. And to end on a high note with Jocko Willink to come talk about this book we shared with everybody is going to be a tremendous day for us.
We feel deeply honored. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is an active service on their part as well to join us in this effort. And so we're really grateful for that.
We are.
You know, just to double down on this, right? Excuse me. Sorry. You know, what we want all of you listening, right? The reason that we're doing this show today is we want you to prepare for next week, right? We want you to, you know, look at the backgrounds and bios. We want you to read Jocko's book, right? And we want you to consider hosting a watch party, bring your office together, bring your friends and colleagues together. This is a this is a live show, right? I'm watching the emojis fly right now, Wessal, when you made that announcement, right? Which is awesome. Yes, it's amazing.
Take advantage of it. We're doing this for everyone, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
Do something with this. We're giving you a 4-day lead time until the show on Monday to build your CRM list, your database, blast some emails to people who matter, invite people to these Facebook watch parties, share them live, put calendar reminders for yourself. Take advantage. It's 5 days of content leading up to Memorial Day. Even just resharing all of this to your people is an act of service, right? To help them remember all of our veterans and to learn from anyone that we can share with is an act of service. Please take advantage of this and plan accordingly because this is amazing content. All of whom, mind you, including Jocko and Andrew on Friday, are doing this without any cost to us to you, which is very unique also. Let me tell you, you know, Jocko's not a cheap sort of time slot, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
But he's doing this for all of you. So we really want you to take advantage of it. Please don't let us down with this. You got to. This is amazing content.
Absolutely. That's tremendous. Wessal, I think with that, we're going to wrap. I can't wait for next week to get started. I'm so excited, right?
It's going to be so raw, so good. We're going to learn so much.
If you're watching this replay on YouTube and you want to learn more, drop a comment. I'm responding to all of the comments. We're going to organize some information so you can host watch parties and make sure you have all of the links available to you. So please do that and tell everybody about this because it's going to be a tremendous event next week. And you have an opportunity to interact live with all of these amazing military leaders. So with that, Wessal, why don't you say goodbye for the day to our agentpreneurs?
I'll see each of you every day next week, all 5 days leading up to Memorial Day. Randy and I are co-hosting together, so you'll see a lot of me next week. I can't wait to talk to you then.
That's right.
Thanks for having me, Randy.
Thanks so much, Wessal. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
That's great. I have a feeling after next week she's just going to take over the show, but so be it. That's all good. Great week, amazing lineup. Remember to tune in tomorrow. We've got my good friend Keizo Shimamoto coming on, world famous ramen chef, and he's got amazing lessons about passion and focus and discipline, many of the themes that we've covered in this show. So tune in tomorrow. Go ahead, and actually I'm going to pull it up on the screen right now just in case you don't remember the name of it. Extreme Ownership. You see it on the screen right now. Get this book. In fact, we had a comment. Let me pull this up if I can find it quickly enough. We had a tip from Matt Ruzz who says anyone who has a library card can probably borrow the ebook or audiobook version of Extreme Ownership for free through an app called Libby. So there are ways for you to, if you're not in a position to purchase the book, to rent or borrow the book. This is extremely popular. It's going to be great for you to read this ahead of next week. So consider doing that. Share all of this video, share this stuff with your friends, with your colleagues, and we're going to see you next week for what's going to be a tremendous lineup. So until then, be safe and be healthy and be happy. Make sure you get your rest, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.